Just this past February's edition of Chemical Week. And from my perspective, I think that a trend is real when the chemical industry takes the lead. Now, many of us think of Love Canal and other industrial toxicity fiascos when we think of the chemicals industry, but a lot has really changed. As I indicated, the cover story here was all about green chemistry. Actually, this is a primary example of what is going on, how societal factors, industry, consumers, government, are all working together to innovate in order to enhance our environment and profits for the company at the same time. As a matter of fact, you might know that this past September 08, Governor Schwarzenegger signed 2 laws for California, obviously, that began a shift in California and thereby the world towards a strong focus on green chemistry. Now, as you might know, green chemistry represents a large-scale paradigm shift in the way we view chemicals and contained in consumer products, evaluating the potential hazards when a product is developed rather than actually once it's disposed of. So the concept is cradle to cradle rather than what used to be called cradle to grave. This changes the paradigm of innovation and new product development throughout the entire value chain. It truly represents a whole new way of doing business. California's new laws and Governor Schwarzenegger's recently announced plans for California to be a cradle-to-cradle state will continue to be a key driver in this arena for years to come. Actually, right before this was passed, the LA Times wrote, there are few worthier bills in the current legislative session. So to get there, California realized that every day the U.S. produces or imports over 42 billion pounds of chemicals. And that number will actually double across the globe between now and 2030. So with these regulations, California has actually begun a systematic shift in how it views and deals with hazardous chemicals in consumer goods and products, from their cradle rather than only at their grave, as I indicated a few minutes earlier. This is a really good example of societal factors at work, and it represents a truly comprehensive strategy. Instead of the historically more piecemeal approach, by looking at each chemical as newspaper articles are published about toxicity in various consumer products, toxins in various consumer products, this is a very proactive approach. It's comprehensive as well, and it's intended to prevent dangers rather than simply address them reactively. So how will this affect or help private industry? Well, green chemistry in California is expected to spur economic growth. It's expected to help promote innovation in a new industry sector, encouraging venture capital investments and job creation. And actually, this isn't just hype. Actually, companies are finding it to be true. So for example, AkzoNobel, which is a chemical company, has a whole line of eco-premium products, which are priced competitively and have a significantly lower footprint than similar products. Another company, the company actually estimates that about 18% of its total sales are the result of these eco-premium products. And they're on track to achieve 30% of total sales by 2015 of these products. Another company which is well down the road is Dow Chemical. Dow is actually, for example, they have an innovative rent-a-solvent program. Again, another cradle-to-grave concept. They've also had very significant billions of dollars of savings in various other programs that they have. So you can see the industry is actually starting to use the whole societal factors trend to not just affect the bottom line, but to vanquish its image as a polluter. As we all know, laws in California, regulations in California affect the world because it is a big market and many of the products are made, most of them perhaps, are made outside of California. So green chemistry is broadly supported as the next frontier to fight, in the fight to make our lives, everyday lives, healthier and safer and more environmentally sound. A coalition of manufacturers, chemical companies, and environmental groups is supporting efforts to build a solid scientific foundation for more aggressive efforts to reduce industry's reliance on toxic chemicals. And the reason I'm going through all this is that the legislation required business, environmental groups, Democrats, Republicans, and other parties, the state Senate and the Assembly, to all work together to pass these rules, which actually benefit everybody. And I actually, when I read this, I thought it was such a great example of societal factors at work, I thought I'd mention it. Just one or two more examples, and then we'll start the day. I don't know if you read last Monday's cover page in the New York Times about the situation in China. Actually, China, as you may have heard or read, is far outpacing the U.S. in building cleaner, I would say clean, but cleaner coal-fired plants. China has emerged in the past 2 years as the world's leader in these plants. China is in the process of investing in the most efficient coal power plants to increase their efficiency by over 30%. Actually, over 33%. By adopting ultra-supercritical technology, which uses extremely hot steam to achieve the highest efficiency, and by building many of these identical plants across their country, China has cut costs dramatically. As a matter of fact, they could build one of these plants for a third less than it costs to build a much less efficient plant in the U.S. Of course, societal factors has a different connotation in China than it does here, but I thought it was still a pretty good example. Just some food for thought before we start today's seminar is another illustrative example I thought is human waste, or otherwise known as biosolids. Now that we're on the topic of energy, estimates indicate that the over 6.5 billion people on the planet each generate 6 kilograms of biosolids, dry biosolids, a year. In the more developed countries, the number is even higher, more like 25 kilograms. And the more developed countries have very well developed systems to deal with it, but they're running out of solutions. Regulations are becoming stricter. Communities are becoming more concerned with safety and health issues, quality of life issues. And in less developed countries that don't have the infrastructure, they're obviously developing, and their number will actually, their volume of waste will actually increase.